It's what I saw in that moment. It's what I didn't miss. Backstory. Facebook greeted me this morning with an old track video under the heading 2 years ago today. I smiled at the video but hesitated over the heading, which I knew to be incorrect, since the Knoxville photos had been flooding my Facebook for days already. We just hadn't hurried to post it on the rushed ride south that May Saturday afternoon, nor had I felt it appropriate to share the story during any part of that somber weekend with my siblings. And on our return the next week, I had posted it with minimal description, not hiding the achievement, but also not framing the event in its proper context, in case our choice still had the power to offend. But 2 years and a little more later, I recognize that there's a good backstory to this video clip, one that needs to be told and honored. Like the Open 800-meter run at its heart, it is neither short nor painless. But like the race itself, there's a payoff at the end. The video shows Benjamin winning a race at a big meet. That result, though, is not the story. I write this with no sense of bravado, but my track kids have done very well in the sport and have won more than their share of races. You might argue that it's in their blood, passed down from their father's mother and beyond, but EB's inclusion on this list eliminates DNA as the sole root cause and gives credence to the argument that there is more to our wiring than just our wiring. But regardless of cause, videos of my kids' big races all look the same, except for this one. Normally, they are either trailing with 200 meters to go before unleashing their individual version of the Friesen kick.
Here we go!
Or else they're ahead and coasting to the finish, saving energy for another race. Not this one. In this clip of the Nally Open 800 junior year, Benjamin bursts out to the lead at the gun, widens the gap throughout the next lap and a half, and hits the final corner with an insurmountable distance between himself and the rest of the field. With 100 meters to go, he then crushes the stretch run, leaving nothing back in a race where he'd already clinched the top medal, to the extent where he's in severe, barely able to walk pain long after the race is over, with a long road trip ahead. That isn't Benjamin's MO at all. He normally sits and kicks, and goes exactly as fast as he needs to win. At the end of this video clip, you see a huddle of purple track uniforms around a still bent-over Benjamin, and then a massive pent-up cheer followed by high fives and hugs from his teammates and coach as the race's result is announced over the PA. There's even a slap on the back from Big Brother Noah, also clad in purple, though slightly different, who has cheered for him from the track's infield with his old high school teammates, when he should still be away at college 90 minutes south on a pre-finals weekend. A bigger reaction than normal, I would say. A bigger gathering of supporters. So, the backstory? This has annually been our family's favorite meet, where Noah and Benjamin have had both season-making successes and heartbreaking injuries. Scheduled strategically near the end of each track season, this is the big one, the springboard to sectional success, and beyond that, to state. The name alone conjures memories and emotions. Nally. But in Benjamin's junior year, this iconic meet fell between his grandfather's death and funeral down in Tennessee. My brother Dave and I had together made a last dash down to Knoxville the previous weekend, and in my father's last awake moments, we had held his hand, prayed with him, and assured him that his family would gather the next weekend to honor him for his life and love, and to praise God for his faithfulness. When I returned midweek from Dad's deathbed, the obvious choice as a family was to skip the meet and head 8 hours south on Friday to begin that process of honoring my father. And that was already the presumption back home when I returned. No other option had even been considered. And if it had been any other meet, or even a different high school year, I would likely have concurred. But this was not just another meet. And although my father had not been athletically inclined, to say the least, nor even athletically interested. I knew he would understand my dilemma. We had shared many stories over the years about regret, more so his than my own, but he'd been very familiar with a story from my own high school junior year when I'd been denied the chance to play on the year's biggest stage due to circumstances I could not control. Not a big life regret by any means, but sure, a burr in my shoe from time to time when reminiscing old memories with high school buddies or sharing war stories with my kids. Bottom line, my top-seeded basketball team, with me, the always fast-breaking point guard, did not play in the provincial Final Four tournament in Canada, akin to the state championship south of the border, because the final was scheduled for a Sunday, and I played for a Christian high school. Now, I've never known whether or not God was honored by our non-participation that weekend, but I do know that my teammates and I hadn't been given a choice in the matter. On that weekend, and even decades later, it felt more like something taken away from us than something we stood to honor together, something to regret. And a regret to feel guilt over, because it was for an honorable reason, right? And this memory kept revisiting me as I pondered the best way to honor my father after sharing those last words with him just a few days earlier. I had edited a short video from my father's last remaining brother, too old himself to make the long trip from British Columbia, and I'd completed the final revisions on a writing that I would read at his funeral. But how does one balance the simultaneous roles of mourning son, supportive sibling, and present father? How does one actually define the word honor? And who decides when there's no one left to ask? In the end, I came to believe that running a big race in honor of his grandfather would be a better memory for my son in his middle age than having the race taken away from him. And so I talked with my junior son, made excuses to my brothers and sisters, and then emailed Benjamin's coach, explaining that Benjamin would like to compete in the big meetup coming, but that we couldn't possibly stay for the whole thing. We would literally have to leave the stadium by a set time and drive 8 hours nonstop to the town from which my brother and I had just returned. Nadia had offered to handle the funeral brunch the next morning, and we had limits. His coach said no problem. He can run anything he wants and then can just leave. He knew the story, and, well, awesome coaches my kids have had. But the order of events and number of heats at all levels meant that his best event, the 400, was out of the question. We'd never make it. So Coach penciled Benjamin in for the open 800, with no relays at all, and we all headed to the stadium 40 minutes from our home, his older brother beside him in his purple college hoodie, and suitcases full of pressed dark clothes in the back. And though I told Benjamin pre-race not to put any pressure on himself for the results, just running is honor enough. That's not really the way my kids are wired, whatever the cause. And so then the video clip, the uncharacteristic fast start for a sit-and-kick runner, the big lead, the determined sprint at the end when no sprint is warranted and no gas is left in the tank, and the dramatic lean at the end as if this was a photo finish rather than a runaway. Makes sense. And then the announced time that breaks his school's 25-year-old record by a fraction of a second. The reaction from his coach, his teammates, and his brother. Makes sense too. What the clip doesn't show is that this is the last time, much to his coach's chagrin, that Benjamin ever agreed to run the Open 8, left it all on a certain track, and never wanted to do it again. And never did. In the end, the Friesen name is on 5 different records on the CCHS track wall. 4 of them were set at state. 1 even won state, Benjamin as a senior in the Open 4. Come on, Benjamin, you gotta go. You gotta beat everybody else. Joey Lopez. Beat everybody else. Come on. Stay with him.
Benjamin, take it. Yeah, that's it, Benjamin. That's it, Benjamin. That's it, Benjamin.
Let's go, Benjamin.
Take it, Benjamin.
Come on, Benjamin.
Take it, Benjamin.
Show what you got. Let's go. Let's go, Benjamin. Let's go, Benjamin. And then there's this one, the one not set at state, the one most likely to be broken. But at this time of year, when Facebook floods my wall with dark-clothed family photos, the one some of us are least likely to forget. So Dad, this is why we arrived a little later than expected 2 years ago on the weekend after we last talked. But We had good reason. We were too busy honoring Benjamin, honoring you. Besides, I like to think we weren't really late at all. We just started early. Love you, Dad. Miss you. And oh yeah, no regrets.
Runners, class 238.